Alright guys, welcome back to F1 News. One of the big ongoing debates right now in Formula 1 is around sprint weekends. They're very controversial for many reasons and different teams have different perspectives on them. Red Bull are vehemently against their addition and certainly their development going forward as F1 want to continue to promote. Verstappen hates them, not a big fan at all, neither does Christian Horner, but Mercedes have an entirely different perspective. Hamilton and Russell have come around to them over the last few Grand Prix they've done with sprint races over the last season or so, maybe inspired by their victory last year in Brazil the sprint race for George Russell, but are they saying this because they actually like them, or are they saying this because Red Bull, for whatever reason, seem to struggle more on sprint weekends? Very much intrigued to hear your perspective in the comment section below. Hit the like button if you enjoy, subscribe if you're new as always. Now firstly, if you guys didn't watch yesterday's video, a quick update for you guys on this Ferrari internal drama. We saw that Lapo Elkan, brother of John Elkan, the president of Ferrari, said on Twitter in quite a remarkable tweet to be honest, "Santander for me, terrible bank." Hilarious in many ways, but calling out the Santander sponsorship of Ferrari for many years, implying that Santander had something to do with the downfall at Ferrari. This tweet was actually then deleted. I had to go back to yesterday's video to screenshot this because obviously as a former board member and current shareholder, this might not be the best thing to say publicly, but still, he said it and it's now gone. Now, the reason behind this whole drama, I was unclear exactly why people thought that Santander was part of the downfall, and I was only a kid really when these stories were in parts going around the media, so I wanted to share because I managed to discover, and you guys were mentioning a little bit in the comments, exactly why people think that Santander have been, you know, the beginning of the end of the Ferrari era, when they of course had a great period. They won in 2007 again with Kimi Raikkonen. They won the Constructors in 2008, of course, their final ever World Championship win, and this is very conspiratorial in many ways and definitely intrigued to your perspective on this. But okay, so Santander was sponsoring McLaren when Alonso was there. They then followed him over to Renault, and they wanted to go back and sponsor Ferrari. So Fernando Alonso joined Ferrari in 2010, and Kimi Raikkonen was there 2007, 8 and 9. And the rumour has it that Kimi Raikkonen, having started very well in 2008, looked on course to potentially defend his title. He'd, just won 2 of the first 4 races, was doing very well, looked on course, and then, okay, he still had a decent rest of the season, but he definitely fell off the pace a bit from that point to the end of the season. There could be many reasons for this, but some people believe that Santander said, hey, for us to sponsor Ferrari again, we want to bring Alonso in. That means Kimi Raikkonen has got to go. And they did eventually in 2009 effectively buy Kimi's contract out to bring Alonso into the team. So, rumor says that Santander was involved as a Spanish company, right, a Spanish ownership group. They wanted to support Alonso. They wanted him to go to Ferrari, and therefore they were involved in the downfall of Kimi Raikkonen and some sort of deliberate sabotage in order to get Alonso into that car. I'm not sure I buy it personally. Intrigued to your thoughts. That might be what Lapo Elkan is getting at, or maybe there's something else going on with Santander, Ferrari, Spanish drivers, and other kind of drama in history of Formula 1. There is certainly plenty of that, but this might be what he's getting at, so just wanted to share that for you guys. Quick note on Hockenheim as well. We know that there's some rumours that they want to return, or a return of a German Grand Prix would be very fun. We are doing everything we can to make a comeback, but we stand by our opinion that an F1 race shouldn't financially ruin us. The tracks have to pay a lot of money to compete in Formula 1, and it's surprising why, Stefano Domenicali go and just rinsing these places dry, but there is a lot of competition for it, so maybe you can understand it. But still, Hockenheim are like, look, unless we get this for a decent amount of money, we're not going to go anywhere near Formula 1 again, so at least they're interested in getting back involved. Let's talk sprint weekends then, because a big controversy as of late, and Red Bull and Mercedes are completely at odds on their opinions on this, as are, I think, part of the community as well. So Stefano Domenicali, he's been pushing hard for so many changes, points for practice, some sort of different sprint ideas, sprint with an inverted grid. Everything has been thrown around to try and keep the Drive to Survive fans more entertained, and I can understand it, but obviously you want to maintain to a certain extent the DNA of the sport is what people are discussing. So last year we had 3 sprint races. They were, of course, in Imola, Austria and Brazil. This year we've got 6. They binned off Imola because it was pretty terrible. They've brought in Azerbaijan instead. Really just Grand Prix with better overtaking opportunities, which, okay, maybe it makes the sprint race more entertaining, but it also means that the qualifying positions, if the standard format was retained, which it's not being from Austria onwards, are eliminated by the sprint race effectively, and qualifying is almost irrelevant because by the time you get to the race on Sunday, the sprinters corrected the order, shall we say, for what it's going to look like on Sunday. Now, going forwards, that's not going to quite be the same thing we'll see in a second, but Baku, Austria, Belgium, they're going to do one, Qatar, everyone's favourite track, the USA and Austin, and then Brazil. I believe that's 3 out of 4 4 races here, Qatar, US and Brazil, with the exception of Mexico, that are going to have sprints. So it's an action-packed end to the season, especially when the teams only have 3 engines to run for the year. You've got, what, 24 races it should be. China was meant to be today, but it's not. 23 races with 3 engines plus 6 sprints. Like, you can understand the teams are like, look, we have a budget cap here. We have a certain amount of parts we could use. If there are crashes, if there are issues, like that affects us significantly, and there still are the same limits on parts, even though there's way more races to be done. Now, the teams will use 4 plus engines anyway, because you can't really get by on 3, and they are making some changes to the format. So if you guys saw this rumor recently, and this has now been confirmed, that it will now be qualifying on Friday and FP1 on Friday as normal, but Saturday will be entirely for the sprints, and there will be a separate qualifying session for the sprints, and the sprint is run as its own weekend type thing, effectively, when it has no impact on the race, and it's just there for points with a separate quali session. This is better for a few reasons we've discussed before, in my opinion at least. This won't be here for Baku though, because I don't think that Pirelli can get the amount of tyres they need for the extra quali session in time, so there's already questions about sustainability going on there, but this is going to be a normal sprint weekend for Baku, and then afterwards it's going to go to this format going forward, we believe. So Christian Horner said, first of all, it's ludicrous to be doing this at Azerbaijan, concerned understandably about the risk of crashes and safety cars and incidents and damage to be done that is going to affect the teams. So Horner's saying this, and Verstappen has also made his thoughts known as well. Crack as well, so this is Mike Crack from Aston Martin. He says there has been some constructive discussions about how to achieve a growth and evolution of Formula 1 in general, but it also has to keep its DNA, and I totally agree with Crack on this one. You've got to understand the stakeholders' interests. You look at the timeline with regulations, tyre availability, engine mileage, all those factors. You've got to come up with something that works as a compromise for the bigger picture and not just look at the money, because Formula 1 would love to probably have, if he had a choice to find a Domenicali, he would probably have a sprint weekend every weekend, because it means that there's no Friday just there for practice. There's action every single day. Maybe better for the fans in attendance, maybe more, it's going to increase the viewership rates naturally when there's more things happening. But is it actually best for the sport? It's a bit of a debate out there right now. I don't mind a few of them a season, to be honest, and with this new format I am more in favour of it, but I'm still not convinced, right? And neither is Verstappen. He reckons the DNA should not be changed. His opinion is quite clear, actually. I do not find that it's the DNA of F1 to do these kind of sprint races. F1 is about getting the most out of it in qualifying and then having an amazing Sunday. That's the DNA of the sport. I don't understand why we should change that, because I think the action on track has been good, and how do we get even more action on track is about getting the cost closer, getting more teams to be able to fight for the win. Naturally, the show will be great. If we had 6, 7 teams fighting for the win, that'd be crazy good. Maybe that's the direction to try and go, and they're making steps to try and make that happen. When we're going to do all that kind of stuff, the weekend becomes even more intense. We're already doing so many races. I don't think that's the right way to go about it. I understand they want to have every day exciting, but then I think maybe it's better to reduce the weekends. Just go Saturday, Sunday, and make those 2 days exciting, because we're heading into seasons where you've got 24, 25 races, and then adding more stuff. It is not worth it for me. I'm not enjoying that. And Verstappen even said that if they continue doing this, he's going to leave maybe as soon as his contract with Red Bull is up. So Verstappen's perspective is very clear, but the Mercedes guys disagree. Now, it's difficult to say whether this is in part due to the fact that Mercedes on sprint weekends, especially Brazil, did rather well, and Red Bull have historically at sprint weekends struggled to get their car set up right with just one session of practice. So there's probably an element here from both Verstappen and Horner and from Hamilton and Russell as to pushing a narrative which helps them the most. Sprint races create more chaos. Naturally, the team that is on top, as Red Bull are, will want to reduce said chaos, and teams that are behind, such as Mercedes, will want to increase said chaos. So just one perspective to think about. Hamilton says, I think the changes with the sprint races have been positive in some places. I'm open to changes to continue to make it more inclusive and more engaging for fans. I quite like the Friday of a sprint weekend so far, and I'd love to have more qualifying, because that's always super fun. This is on the idea of having that additional quali session on Saturday just for the sprints, which is separate to the Grand Prix weekends. Russell also gave his thoughts. In the beginning, I wasn't a fan. After doing 6 of them, I've become more in favour. So Russell and Hamilton both down for it. Now, Toto Wolff has a slightly different perspective. He says that he's a bit more conservative and cautious about it. I'm more on the conservative side. I like qualifying. I like the Grand Prix, the great prize, but we have to be open-minded about where the sport is going to go. I think 2 qualifying sessions per se is not something that's bad, but even if we stick to the current format, I think we wouldn't be able to do this with engine management, and Pirelli hasn't got enough tyres. So Wolff and Horner and Mike Crack, understandably as team principals, have that kind of more conservative, cautious perspective, but the drivers, some of them like it. Mercedes guys seem to quite enjoy it. Extra qualifying sessions, just a bit more fun than just driving around in practice. Verstappen, though, has an entirely different opinion. So I don't know where you guys fall in the comment section below. There have been some good sprints. I mean, Brazil 2022 was great fun. Fundamentally, though, you know, obviously Kevin Magnussen, who stuck it on pole on Friday, was swallowed up by the chasing pack, and eventually, what was he, P10, P8, P9, something like that, by the end of the sprint race. So, you know, all his good work in qualifying was undone, and there usually isn't that much action just because teams and drivers want to make absolutely sure there is no damage to their car. But I do feel like the changes they're trying to make, with the sprint race being just for points and irrelevant to the starting order come Sunday, will actually make them a more viable prospect on a weekend. And I don't mind a few of them a season. It accelerates the weekends. It does add a bit more chaos and some questions because, as I say, Red Bull historically haven't always nailed their setup out of the gates, and a sprint weekend makes that more challenging and does further open the door to more interesting and entertaining results, one could argue. Just one final thing to mention before we close out the video, that technically, despite the gap between Red Bull and the second place team is not too dissimilar to the gap from the second place team to the worst team. It's kind of incredible, but technically the gap over the entire field from Red Bull down to Alpha Tauri, which is on average the slowest car, kind of remarkable to think about, is only 1.96% slower than Red Bull, which is what, 1.7 seconds per lap. Comparing that gap to the first three races in other seasons, this is the most compact competitive season we have had, which is I think probably true. Like, if you discount Red Bull a little bit, the season behind it is great. The AlphaTauri is kind of bad, but it's still got a point with Tsunoda and a bit of luck in Australia. Every other car has got some points on merit so far, and the battle for second is great. So, like, if Red Bull were a bit closer to the rest of the pack or a little bit further behind, then we'd have a fantastic season on our hands, and maybe we're not far away from that happening, but maybe implies that what Verstappen says about what we should do to increase the importance and the entertainment of the sport is to try and close the gap between the cars is actually the right way to try and go about things. And maybe the cost cap era and the wind tunnel testing time discrepancies is indeed starting to take that effect. But very much enjoyed your thoughts in the comments below. Hit the like button if you enjoyed. Subscribe if you're new. Take care, and I'll see you next time.